In a world where change is the only constant, Mo Shamil stands at the forefront, guiding title professionals to not just grow their businesses, but to master the art of innovation. With every episode, you're handed the keys to unlock unparalleled growth and stay ahead of the curve. Get ready for a transformative journey.
Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive designed specifically for you. We know exactly why you are here today.
Yeah, you are looking to cut through all that incredibly dense financial jargon that usually surrounds corporate earnings.
Right, exactly. You are hunting for those real, actionable insights that you can apply directly to your business in the title industry.
And that is the mission today. We are unpacking the newly released Q4 and full year 2025 earnings reports from the Big Four title insurance underwriters.
That's Fidelity National Financial, First American Financial, Old Republic International, and Stewart Information Services.
Now, reading through corporate earnings reports usually sounds about as thrilling as watching paint dry.
It really does. But here is the why you should care moment. These reports are actually a crystal ball.
They really are.
If you are an independent title agent, an agency owner, or just an industry professional, these documents do not just report the past.
No, they reveal exactly where the real estate market is heading right now.
They show us where the big money is actively flowing. And crucially, they illustrate how technology is fundamentally shifting the competitive landscape beneath our feet.
And before we get lost in the billions of dollars these companies are reporting, we really need to ground this in your reality.
Right.
Every single one of those billions is made up of individual files sitting on desks in agencies, just like yours.
So true. The macro data we are looking at today is a direct reflection of your daily micro-level operations.
That is a vital perspective to keep in mind. These reports give us a high-altitude view of the entire playing field, allowing you to see the overarching currents that will inevitably trickle down to your local market.
Okay, let's unpack this. 2025 was, by almost every metric available in these reports, a staggering year across the board.
It really was.
We are looking at a surprisingly bullish market. Can you walk us through the sheer scale of the revenue figures we are seeing? Let's just set the stage here.
Yeah, the scale is phenomenal. Let's start with Fidelity National Financial, or FNF. They brought in $8.5 billion for the full year of 2025.
Wow.
Yeah, that is an 11% increase over the previous year. And they were not alone in that trajectory either.
Right. First American was right there with them.
Exactly. First American Financial, FAF, was right behind them with $7.5 billion in total revenue.
And that represented a 22% jump compared to last year, right?
A 22% jump.
A 22% jump for a company of that size is just astronomical. What about the other two?
Well, Stewart Information Services hit $2.9 billion for the year, and Old Republic International's title segment saw $2.86 billion in net premiums and fees.
Which is a very solid 9.1% increase.
Right. When you add all of that up, you are looking at an industry that is incredibly healthy and generating enormous volume.
But we have to ask the obvious question here. Why are these numbers universally strong right now? What is driving this across the entire sector?
What we are seeing in these reports indicates a systemic shift in the market. We are finally seeing the compounding effects of lower interest rates merging with a returning real estate market.
Right. The freeze is over.
Exactly. That combination is creating substantial tailwinds for the title industry. The frozen market we saw previously is thawing rapidly, and pent-up demand is finally being transacted.
You can really hear the optimism ringing through the executive commentary in these reports, too. It is not just the numbers, it is their forward-looking sentiment.
Oh, absolutely.
Mark Seaton, the CEO over at First American, explicitly stated that he expects 2026 to be a record year.
Yeah, Mike Nolan, the CEO of FNF, noted that their company is perfectly positioned for an eventual recovery to more normalized levels.
They're basically saying, we just had a phenomenal year, and the broader market hasn't even fully normalized yet.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at how these top-line numbers actually break down into specific transaction types.
Because the overall pie is growing, but the slices of that pie are changing shape dramatically.
Exactly.
And that leads us to what is arguably the most surprising revelation in this entire stack of data. While the residential market is showing steady growth, commercial real estate is absolutely exploding.
It is going nuts.
Did the other big players see the same spike in commercial that First American did?
Absolutely. The commercial data in these Q4 reports is truly standout. Let's look at First American first. They saw their commercial revenues surge by 35% in the fourth quarter alone,
35%.
hitting $339 million. For the full year, their commercial revenues crossed the $1 billion mark.
That is massive.
And Fidelity National Financial reported that their commercial revenue jumped 27%, $479 million for the quarter.
That is a tectonic shift in volume. And I noticed Old Republic called out something specific about their portfolio mix regarding commercial rate.
They did. Old Republic noted that commercial premiums now make up 29% of their net premiums earned. That is up from 23% the previous year. That means commercial isn't just growing, it is actively eating up a larger percentage of their overall business.
But the real insight, the piece of data that really explains the why behind this commercial explosion, comes from Stewart Information Services.
Yeah, they provided a very specific breakdown.
A breakdown that completely changes how we should be looking at the commercial sector. What exactly is driving their growth?
Stewart reported that their domestic commercial revenues shot up 38% in the fourth quarter. And they explicitly told us why.
It wasn't retail space?
No, it wasn't retail or office buildings driving this. The growth was specifically fueled by transactions involving data centers and energy assets.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about the broader economy. We are in the middle of a generational infrastructure build-out.
Completely.
The explosion of artificial intelligence requires immense computational power, which means building vast data centers. Those data centers require incredible amounts of electricity, which drives energy asset transactions.
Precisely. All of that macro-level tech and energy infrastructure development requires land. It requires complex transactions, and it filters directly down to the title industry.
Now let's talk about the golden nugget from Stewart's report that made my jaw drop.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Because of these complex deals, Stewart's average domestic commercial fee per file grew by 39%. What is their average commercial fee sitting at now?
Their average commercial fee is now $27,300 per file.
That is staggering. $27,000. And just to give everyone a baseline, what was their average residential fee in that same quarter?
Their average domestic residential fee was $3,300.
So you were looking at $27,300 for a commercial file versus $3,300 for a residential file.
Difference is wild.
That profit disparity is monumental. But let's pause and explain the mechanics of this for a second. Why is a data center file generating a $27,000 fee? What kind of complexities are pushing that premium so high?
It comes down to risk and extreme complexity. When a tech giant buys a 500-acre agricultural property to convert into a massive server farm, the title agent isn't just checking a standard subdivision plat.
Right, it's not a simple neighborhood lot.
Exactly. They are pulling a century of historical records. They have to untangle complex zoning changes, high-voltage electrical easements, and highly specific water rights.
Because data centers require enormous amounts of water for their cooling towers.
Exactly. The liability is massive, the examination process is grueling, and therefore the fee reflects that specialized expertise.
I love thinking about it through the lens of the restaurant industry. A residential file is like a fast food drive-through. The margins are razor thin, so your entire business model relies on speed and high volume.
Right.
But these data center commercial files, that is a Michelin star restaurant. You are serving far fewer clients, but the complexity, the specialized skill required, and the ultimate premium are on a completely different level.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights exactly what this means for you, the independent agent listening right now.
The agencies that have the expertise, the staffing, and the operational capability to handle these complex commercial deals are sitting on a gold mine.
The margins on those files are transformative.
It certainly makes you rethink your entire networking strategy. If you aren't talking to developers in the tech and energy space, you are leaving money on the table.
Without a doubt.
But, of course, we cannot ignore the bread and butter of the industry. Let's pivot and talk about the residential side of things, because there is a major rebound happening there as well. Specifically, the return of the refinance.
The residential market is showing a very distinct two-pronged narrative right now. On one hand, you have purchase orders showing moderate, stable growth.
Right.
First American saw a 14% increase in direct title orders closed in their domestic operations, largely driven by a stabilizing purchase market.
But the real story that jumps off the pages of these earnings reports is the aggressive return of refinancing.
I saw the numbers from Fidelity National Financial, and aggressive is the right word.
What exactly did FNF report for their refi volume?
FNF reported a 38% increase in refinance orders opened on a daily basis in the fourth quarter.
38%.
And their refi orders closed jumped by 39% compared to the same quarter last year. Those are huge double-digit swings.
The macroeconomic driver here is clear. Easing interest rates are finally unfreezing the refinance market. Homeowners who were locked into their current rates or waiting on the sidelines are finally seeing the mathematical justification to refinance.
And that is pushing a sudden wave of volume into the title ecosystem.
So what does this all mean? If you are running an independent title agency, this data is flashing a giant warning light about your operational agility.
It really is.
Let me ask you this, though. Aren't refis generally considered easier files to process? Why is a spike in volume a potential problem?
They are structurally less complex than a purchase, but that is exactly where the danger lies. Residential purchase orders are high-touch, relationship-driven, and carry a certain margin that allows for a bit more dedicated time per file.
Sure.
Refis are a completely different beast. They are high volume, lower margin, and require extreme factory-level efficiency.
So it's the drive-through model we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Agencies need to be staffed, trained, and technologically prepped to handle a sudden influx of refinance paperwork without letting their customer service on the purchase side slip.
Because if your agency's workflows are completely optimized for the slower pace of a purchase market, a 39% spike in refi volume will break your operational pipelines if you aren't prepared to scale your processing.
It is a major evolution in how an agency needs to structure its day-to-day operations.
Which brings us to a really fascinating dynamic hidden in these reports. With all this volume coming back, both commercial and residential, how is the independent agent actually faring against the big underwriters' own direct operations?
It's the classic question.
Are the big four eating all this new volume themselves, or are independent agents capturing the growth?
The channel battle between agent and direct operations is always a point of anxiety for independent professionals. But the breakdown in these Q4 reports contains some very validating news.
Good news, finally.
What we are seeing is that both channels are growing simultaneously.
Let's look at the actual breakdown. How did Stewart's independent agency channel perform against their direct operations?
At Stewart, their direct title operations were up a very respectable 18%. But their agency title channel actually beat that, growing by 20%.
We see that same trend line elsewhere.
Right. We do. First American reported that their agent premiums grew by 13% in the quarter.
Nice.
Fidelity National Financials saw their agency title premiums grow by 7%, which translates to a hefty $840 million in agency premiums for Q4 alone.
Wow.
And Old Republic explicitly called out in their commentary that they experienced double-digit growth in both their agency and direct premiums.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. We have heard for 2 decades that the massive underwriters ultimately want to cut out the independent agent to keep all the premium for themselves.
We hear it all the time.
With all their scale and technology, why are these agency numbers still climbing? Why hasn't the independent agent been phased out?
Because of the legacy aspect of this industry. The foundation of title insurance and real estate is built on localized trust.
Trust.
Yes. Despite the massive scale of these underwriters, they still rely fundamentally and heavily on independent agents to capture market share.
Because they can't be everywhere.
Exactly. This is especially true in regional or highly specialized markets, where the independent agent's local relationships, reputation, and nuanced understanding of county-specific quirks are paramount.
Right. An underwriter in a corporate tower simply cannot replicate the handshake relationship a local agent has with the top producing real estate broker in their specific zip code.
They just can't. The local relationship still holds immense value.
That makes perfect sense. But that being said, the competition with the direct operations of these massive underwriters is fierce, and it is evolving rapidly.
Very rapidly.
Which brings us to perhaps the most important underlying theme in all of these reports, the margin secret.
This is where we look past the top-line revenue and examine how much of that money they are actually keeping. And the numbers here are eye-opening.
I was completely stuck on this one metric from FNF. In the fourth quarter, Fidelity National Financial achieved an adjusted pre-tax title margin of 17.5%.
Incredible.
They call it an industry-leading margin. Wait, For those of us tracking our own P&L statement, 17.5% is a huge number. What's the normal baseline an agency would expect without the advantages FNF has?
In a standard title agency, you are typically looking at margins hovering anywhere from 8 to maybe 12% on a good day.
Right.
The title industry is notoriously squeezed by heavy labor and operational costs. Every file requires human eyes, manual search, and data entry.
So, to push a margin up to 17.5% across billions of dollars in revenue is a monumental feat of operational efficiency.
It really is.
How on earth are they extracting 17.5% profit from these transactions?
The answer is found directly in their executive commentary, and it's a wake-up call. FNF explicitly credits this margin expansion to decades of innovative technology solutions.
Technology.
Yes. They have invested heavily in building proprietary systems that drive scale advantages. They are simply able to process a file with significantly less manual human labor than they used to.
And they aren't the only ones focusing heavily on technology. First American laid out a very forward-looking strategy in their report.
They definitely did.
They called out the execution of strategic technology initiatives, and I'm quoting their report here, particularly those leveraging AI, to build what they call durable competitive differentiation.
Let's translate that for a second.
Translation, they are building a moat so deep that smaller competitors won't be able to cross it.
That is exactly what they're doing. But we need to define what they actually mean by AI, because it's not just a buzzword here. They aren't talking about a chatbot writing emails.
No, not at all.
They're using optical character recognition, or OCR, to instantly digitize centuries of handwritten county property records.
Wow.
They're deploying machine learning algorithms that can automatically cross-reference public records and instantly clear simple title defects without a human examiner ever having to touch the file.
That is a profound shift in how the sausage gets made.
This raises an important question. For you, the listener, how are you keeping up?
Seriously.
The Big Four underwriters are aggressively using their massive scale and targeted automation to actively lower their baseline cost to produce a title policy.
I hear that, but a local independent agent doesn't have $1 billion R&D budget. If an underwriter's direct operation can produce a policy for 20% less cost because of OCR and automated examination, the independent agent is going to feel an immense margin squeeze over time. The standard advice is usually just to work harder or focus on customer service. Is that enough anymore?
No, working harder is not a sustainable strategy against automation. The takeaway is that you have to take a hard, critical look at your own tech stack.
You have to adapt.
If the companies with billions of dollars in revenue are explicitly stating that automation is the key to expanding their margins, independent agents must adopt similar tools.
And the good news is they can.
Right. The technology to automate your opening workflows, streamline client communications, and utilize OCR for your own document processing is no longer just locked inside the Big Four. It is becoming commercially available to independent agencies through third-party vendors.
But you have to be willing to adopt it to stay competitive.
Exactly. It sounds like the only way to protect your own margins in the long run is to embrace the evolution of the industry.
Precisely. You cannot outwork an algorithm when it comes to data extraction, but you can leverage that algorithm to free up your staff. If software is doing the rote data entry, your human staff can focus on what they do best: managing complex client relationships, navigating local county nuances, and solving high-level problems that require intuition.
That brings us perfectly to how we view these trends through our LEAP framework, LEAP.
Let's break that down.
First, the legacy of trust. As we discussed in the channel battle, the local relationships independent agents have are still incredibly valuable.
That's the foundation.
Then there is evolution. The structure of the market is shifting under our feet, moving from a steady purchase market to this high-volume refi wave and the massive commercial explosion.
We are seeing it in real time.
Which leads to automation. The underwriters are investing billions in OCR and AI to expand their margins.
And finally, pioneering.
Right. Pioneering is how innovative agencies, how you, the listener, take these changes and use commercially available tech to reinvent your own operations and take advantage of the industry shift.
Let's bring all these threads together because we've covered a significant amount of ground today.
We really have.
Looking at the Big Four earnings from FNF, FAF, Old Republic, and Stewart, the overarching narrative is that the title industry is incredibly vibrant right now. We're seeing commercial deals, specifically those fueled by the tech sector, data centers, and energy assets, becoming highly lucrative targets with substantial fees attached to their complexity.
We are also seeing the residential refinance market thawing rapidly, requiring agencies to pivot their operations to handle high-volume pipelines efficiently.
And through it all, the independent agent channel is absolutely thriving right alongside the direct operations, proving that the legacy of local trust and expertise still commands massive market share.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
As we look at the billions of dollars being poured into these underwriters, there's a clear roadmap of where the industry is heading.
The Big Four are utilizing proprietary data models and targeted automation to relentlessly maximize their margins and empower their direct channels.
They are automating everything that can possibly be automated, from search to examination, which leaves you with one vital, pioneering challenge as you head back into your business today.
What is that challenge?
If the mechanical data entry aspects of the title transaction are slowly being eaten by software, what is the unique, unautomatable value that you, the independent agent, bring to the closing table?
That is the question.
What is the human element, the advisory capacity, or the localized problem-solving skill you possess that an algorithm never, ever will?
That is the space where the independent agent of the future will thrive.
Before we wrap up today, we usually brainstorm a few fun titles for a deep dive like this. Given everything we talked about, what are you thinking?
Oh, let's see. Maybe something like The Margin Secret, what Big Four earnings reveal about title's future.
I like that. Or maybe the data center gold rush in commercial title.
That's a good one. How about refi waves and AI, surviving the next evolution of real estate?
I think any of those capture the magnitude of what's happening right now. And before we completely sign off, I have to ask you our two traditional closing questions.
Sure, go ahead.
What is your favorite quote?
I'd have to go with, the best way to predict the future is to create it. It feels very fitting for the independent agents dealing with all this new technology.
Love that. And your favorite book?
Oh, that's easy. Atomic Habits by James Clear. It is all about how small, incremental operational changes lead to massive long-term results.
Which is exactly what independent agencies need to be doing with their tech stacks right now.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Big Four earnings reports. Keep exploring, keep adapting, and most importantly, stay curious.
In a world where change is the only constant, Mohs Shamil stands at the forefront, guiding title professionals to not just grow their businesses, but to master the art of innovation. With every episode, you're handed the keys to unlock unparalleled growth and stay ahead of the curve. Get ready for a transformative journey